Welcome to Open Local Wine Night. It's a great time to be in the Finger Lakes, and we're going to have a special tasting today, really thrilling bunch of wines. I want to introduce my colleagues here. On my immediate left, Kelby Russell, winemaker at Red Newt Wine Cellars for quite a while. One over, Peter Becraft, right down the road, Anthony Road Wine Cellars. We're going to be talking about 3 vintages of Tierce, one of the most famous Rieslings in America. And we have a vertical 3 different vintages, 3 consecutive vintages for us to taste tonight. And I hope you're able to do the same thing at home. These are really thrilling wines. I want to give you a little background on this wine. It's going back 16 years now that Johannes Reinhardt, who was at Anthony Road, proposed to the 2 other wineries that we make a blended wine involving all our collective skills put into one bottle, something that had never been done in the Finger Lakes, probably not even in the eastern U.S. before. A sort of testament to the spirit of collaboration that we are so famous for in the Finger Lakes and that we enjoy so much. So that was quite a while ago. We've been making a Tierce wine ever since, always Riesling except for 1 year when we made a red wine in 2007. It's a thrilling prospect to do this every year, and I must pay lip service to our wonderful assistant winemakers who have just as much input these days as the 3 of us. But here we are the Tierce Brothers. A little bit of background, I found some reviews from earlier vintages, which I'm going to read because they're so flattering, it's just impossible to ignore them. Here's one from a writer in California who's known to love Riesling in general, German Riesling. 2013 Tierce Dry Riesling, Finger Lakes, $30. This wine is a national treasure and one of the top concept wines ever made. A trace of TDN, that's a kerosene-like smell. Loads of lemon and verbena and a classic mineral note lead to a dry but not austere finish based on a trace of RS. 2009 Tierce. This was a really good one, I remember it. A concept wine is one that a winemaker consciously makes in a style that might not be socially correct. But this is a classic of type. This is one of those wines from Peter Bellafacron, Dave Whiting of Red Newt, and Johannes Reinhardt of Anthony Road. Lemon peel, minerally spice notes, a dry but not unyielding entry with enough sugar, 0.8%, and loads of acid, so succulence is muted by crispness. I rated the 08 Tierce as perhaps the best Riesling ever made in the U.S., and this wine is its equal in many ways. Must be tasted to be believed, and a bargain at $30. Will be better in years, perhaps 10. How about that? These wines are younger, but they are in the same style. I think it's time to taste. What do you think?
Yep, ready.
All right, let's start with the 15. So the 2015 Tierce is a really interesting wine for me personally. I had started at Red Newt in 2012, but really in 2013. And as anyone, or as these 2 certainly know, as you start becoming a winemaker, it takes a few years to really get your own sense of style. And for me, the 15 was the first vintage where I would say the Red Newt style had appreciably changed for our dry Rieslings in-house. And there's this concept that we call tiercy, for lack of a better word. It's this idea of what this wine is year in and year out, a style of really dry, very electric Riesling. And I remember being really worried how my, iteration of dry Riesling would fit in with what Fox Run and Anthony Road have brought to the table for so many years. 15 is a vintage. Relatively even growing conditions. It was a small crop because the winter beforehand was pretty brutal, as what is wont to happen in the Finger Lakes. But with small quantity, in this instance came great quality, I'd say across the board. I remember at Red Newt, we had a fair bit of positive botrytis near the end of the season in our Riesling, which we were not, because it was beneficial to the style of the wine, we were really appreciative to have, and really gave our wines a lot of weight and texture. And I think that, to my memory of when we were blending the 15 Tierce how to balance that weight and texture against the usual concept of Tierce is very lean and taut was the real question at the table.
Smells great. It smells really good.
I got lemon verbena on my mind thanks to this review.
I appreciate the texture. I mean, there's a really nice acid kind of surfing on that texture, and it's like, I love wines that make me go.
Yeah, wines like this really invite your intellect to kind of fire up. And the more you look for flavors, the more you see iterations of flavor, progressions of flavor. There's a little chalkiness there, which really helps dry the wine up. Beautiful, beautiful. I haven't enjoyed this particular vintage as much as today, ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really coming into its own. I mean, the 15s were bigger wines, to my recollection, just across the board for Riesling, but I think what makes this particularly Tierce-like is that acid in the finish, right? It's kind of surfing acid in the mid-palate, but then the finish is just really almost like stony and slaty in terms of it just makes your mouth water, and that really makes me think of Tierce.
Yeah.
And Kelby did use the word electricity, I believe, which is one of our. We should patent that, I think.
Electricity, yeah, we can do. I think it's open.
Tension and electricity are things that you don't normally use when you're talking about wine, but when you taste Tierce, you understand them immediately. Electricity is that liveliness, almost as if there's a current running through it. Tension is the interplay between the acid and the other flavors, which is immediately understandable when you taste this wine.
And one other thing, the 15 lower crops, right? I mean, there was a lot of winter kill. The fruit that was there was like nice and concentrated. You can taste that. I mean, there's a nice weight to this. The flavors are really amplified at the moment. Super tasty. Nice job. Nice job, us. All right, then we'll move into the 16. Yeah, no better time. I'm going to talk about the 16.
By the way, we've always used screw caps for this wine, even when screw caps were kind of a very blip on the horizon ever since '04, and we love them.
It's easy to get into.
Yeah. Go ahead, Peter.
Sure. So 16, 15, pretty concentrated, smaller yield. 16, concentrated as well, but a really nice crop load, very balanced, warm, dry. It's one of these vintages that we don't often get where there's nothing wrong, right? Because usually we're ducking and moving like a boxer and trying not to get hit by Mother Nature. And then some years though you get rewarded, and 16 is one of those years. So let's smell this guy.
Well, it's different.
Or gal.
Gender neutral. That's a different wine, huh?
It is, yeah.
I think you can get 16 one of the few years, or probably since the U.S. Drought Monitor has existed. It's the first year the Finger Lakes has ever been in quote-unquote extreme drought through the middle of that growing season. It just didn't rain for about 3 months. And you can get, I mean, there's the concentration that comes from that, but the TDN that you mentioned, or that the one review mentioned, that sort of, I don't know, kerosene or petrol is the word, the English word for it. But that tends to be a result of, tends to come out in hotter, sunnier years. And I don't find it overwhelming. I find it a beautiful part of this wine. It's part of what makes Riesling Riesling. But it's there in a way that isn't true of the 15.
It almost expresses itself as a toasty smell, which is very compelling.
And to me, the aromatics on this are a little bit more understated than the 15. But wait till you taste this. It's going to kill you. In a positive way.
Oh yeah, that pops, huh?
Yeah.
And there's your tension and electricity.
Yeah, when I think about these wines, and all three wineries, we do these flights. We have these wines for sale, not only for Open Local Wine Night, hashtag Open Local Wine Night, thanks Len and Gina. We have these for sale, right? The three for $90, all three of the wineries. But when we could do tastings and have a tasting room open, we had these for sale in the winery. So you could taste these in flights, which is a great way to taste any wine. But to follow this project, because it is such a, a testament to the vintage, right? And the terroirs of our three expressions. It is, what did they say? It was a national treasure? Yes, national treasure is what I thought this. And I agree with that. I mean, there's not another concept wine like this. They said maybe in the U.S. I'd put out in the world. I'll put that out. You can prove me wrong. But when we taste this, I'm looking at these different vintages, and I'm also thinking about the people that helped us make it, right? And so I've got 3 wines here, and I had 2 assistants that helped with these. 2 different assistants, Beth Witt and Lynn Fahey, and so they're not here, but they are as integral for sure. Anything about the 16?
I mean, it's drinking beautifully. I mean, it's a little bit, it's a little bit more on that toast side. The pop in the mid palate is more about like lemon pith and citrus pith than the 15, which is a little more orchard fruit to me.
That reminds me, may I interrupt?
Yeah.
One of the earlier reviews, which was also on the same level of ecstasy as these ones I read, talked about one of the Tierce wines as tasting like Hand of Buddha. And you will remember this. And we all had to scramble to the internet to find out what Hand of Buddha is. It's a citrus fruit that has these lobes that look like a very, very, very fat hand. And I even went to a supermarket once in Toronto and picked up a Hand of Buddha and got a little whiff of Tierce.
Yeah.
Can always
Citron.
You can always tell a Tierce winemaker because we smell the citrus in the grocery store. It's a dead giveaway. That's right. Peter Bell, I'm going to throw you a question here that you weren't expecting. The 16 vintage-wise was a lot like the 7 in terms of heat and drought. And in 7, the decision was not to make a dry Riesling. I don't think that ever really was a question with the 16. Like we were really comfortable with how the dry Rieslings were showing. Why do you think?
Yeah.
What changed,
Great
or what do you
question.
think that?
Kelby is talking about 2 very, very dry years, probably the 2 driest years so far this century, would you say? And 07 was abundantly hot, and we kept praying for at least a half an inch of rain every week. It never really came. I think the difference was there was some redemption with the younger wine, the 16. It started to rain in the fall, the right amount, and the grapes just responded immediately. That never really happened in 07. And we tasted the wines. They sold fine. They were great wines, especially the reds. But 6 months into their aging, I remember it was sort of my proposal that I didn't see a lot of aging potential here. They were beginning to crash a little bit and become kind of coarse and rough, and advanced accelerated aging, none of which is conducive to a good Tierce. So it was an easy decision to turn that wine into a red wine instead.
Yeah, and this is showing none of that. This is just.
Yeah, the evidence is in on the palate there.
Yep.
There's a lot of electricity.
Yep.
Yeah.
We might as well move on to the third one. Wow,
Yes.
that's good. I'm going to take this one home.
It's a tough job, but we have to do it.
We're going to taste the 2017. I think it's our current release.
Okay.
2017, a really fun summer. It was on the dry side. Probably the right amount of rain. What I remember most obviously was how surprised we all were at the size of the crop when we started picking the grapes. Not just Riesling, but everything came in at a very heavy crop load. Normally, I wouldn't bother saying anything about that because that sort of suggests the quality is not that good. But in this case, that was not the case. High quality, high quantity, a grower's dream, a winemaker's nightmare. We were looking at any old vessel that was lying around, not toilet bowls, but almost to ferment grapes in. And we ended up getting a milk truck, 6,000 gallon milk truck that year to put wine in. the redemption here is that the flavors are beautiful and not diluted at all. And here's a wine. Well, why don't one of you describe the aroma?
This one actually, of the three, is showing a little bit more reduction. You know, in kind of that woolly, woolen sweater kind of aromatic there. Which
is a game that some people play. Maybe we could elaborate on that a bit.
Yeah, I mean, there's many schools of thought with Riesling, but there's certainly, and Red Newt plays this a little bit, of going into bottle pretty aromatically closed down, and you have to pick and choose when to do it because it has to be the right type of closed down, I guess is the slippery answer there. But if it's the right type of closed down, it means it will actually open up into something beautiful with age.
And develop a texture which is not obtainable in any other way as far as I can see, right?
Mm-hmm. But I think it's certainly something that's appropriate for any release of Tierce, just because it's a wine that we intuitively think of, not just for being electric and racy, but for being very age-worthy. And, we're tasting 10 and 15-year-old versions sometimes that are still beautiful and fresh. And if that's your time horizon, then you can play that reduction game a little bit more.
We are about to submit a vertical way back to 05, I think 05 or 06, that's going to demonstrate that for an auction if you ever want to spend a lot of money on some great wines.
Who doesn't? Who wouldn't want to do that? This is a textural beast as well. I mean, to me, maybe the flavor concentration is not as intense. It's a little bit more, not that it's not there, but it's not necessarily about that. This one is really playing on the texture and that drawn out length of acid.
Yeah, I'm not seeing immediate citrus fruit expression here as much as something that I can only describe as really beautiful Riesling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and not to get hung up on the numbers, which is never worth doing, but a real we're kind of slaloming through acid levels here. 15 is kind of a medium acid for Riesling at 7.5. Don't worry about the number; it's medium for Riesling. The 16 is kind of shockingly low for a dry Riesling from Tierce at 6.5, and then with the 17, which was a high acid year, which kind of contributes to the longevity of its aging, and where it is right now is pretty high at 8.4. So for a dry Riesling, that's notable.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
And yet they all seem to be in balance, right?
Yeah.
Despite those kind of wacky numbers.
Yeah.
Or like a lot of standard deviation anyway.
Larger crops, so the acid was kind of hanging on as well.
And it was cold.
Yeah. Yeah. So, another thing. Do you remember when we kicked Dave and Johannes out of the band?
Didn't they?
No, I'm kidding.
Was there a pink slip involved?
No. One went solo, and the other one
7 or 8
went
years
into
ago.
production. Yeah, and business. But the fun thing about this project is people come in and out. But the wine stays. It changes as well. But this project can continue. It's not about any one of us.
It never has been.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah, and the reviews that you read from the earlier years, we still get those, and this creates something that is uniquely different than our wines separately. I mean, none of us make a wine like this. Well, we do. It's called Tierce, but ours are not. They don't taste like this. Our house styles don't taste like this wine, and I love that aspect of it. I love that result of that collaboration, working with others
So
to
I think
create
we're going
something
to wrap
new.
up.
Yeah, sounds good.
Any more comments?
No, just support local wine. I mean, wherever you are, this is what this event is about. This is the local wine here in our region in New York State. But if you live in Michigan or Missouri or California, this night is about opening up and supporting your local economy, just like you would want to support your local restaurant. We need your help.
And if you do it one night, you have an obligation to do it for many, many other nights after that.
You probably do that already, right? Yeah. Come on. So, I'm Peter.
I'm Kelby.
I'm Peter, and we're the Tierce
Tierce Brothers.
Brothers.